Hello, folks. This is Richard Florzak, the private chef to the stars, and welcome to Talking About Food. This is the only local review show on the Grand Strand that talks specifically about restaurants, food trucks, festivals, and farmers markets. We'll talk about my favorites, your favorites, and maybe on occasion the not-so-favorites. I'll throw in some of my recipes, and hopefully you can teach me some of yours. I'm going to be interviewing local chefs and local food business owners. And please remember, contrary to a restaurant chef, I cooked in a home, much like most of you listeners. You and I have a lot in common. I've often said the only difference between you, the home cook, and me, the private chef, I got a paycheck. So always remember, you are your family's private chef. That's why I'll also be talking about some of the best major appliances as well as the best small kitchen appliances, the best knives, how to cut corners in the kitchen without cutting quality. And from time to time, I'll be interviewing some of my celebrity friends, and whether celebrity or not, the topic will always be food, because nothing brings people together like great food. And like I said, from time to time, I'll be interviewing some of my celebrity friends, and I have one in the studio today. He is a legend in the fishing community. He's had a radio show on the Gator 107.9 for the past 10 years, formerly called the Southern Anglers Radio Show, now called Trilogy Outdoors. He has a weekly podcast of the same name. He calls in a fish report twice a month to the Liz Calloway Show. Now, you folks are probably wondering, what the heck is he having a fishing boat captain on the Talking About Food show? Hang tight, you'll see. He's the busiest man I know, but will always drop whatever he is doing to help the needy. He has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for people who are less fortunate. His name is Englis Glover. He's known as Captain E, and he is my friend. Captain E, welcome to Talking About Food.
Hi, man. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be in here.
My love of fishing came long before my love of cooking. Although, now that I say that, I can remember from a very young age me being very zeroed in on the different types of food. As a matter of fact, I can remember times when my mother would serve me stuffed flounder for lunch, which I'm sure helps explain my absolute adoration of seafood, and yet another reason why I'm grateful that my wife and I settled in the seafood capital of the beautiful South Carolina coast.
And so I got to hear, what was your mom stuffing those flounder with?
Crab meat.
There we go.
Yeah.
Only way to do it.
I know. Okay, Captain E, let's get to the reason why I'm having you on the show tonight. I'm sure there's a large number of people who enjoy fishing as much as I do, but get sort of intimidated with, getting the fish from, let's say, the hook to your dinner plate, right? So I know I am. Love to fish, but I'm never really sure of what the proper procedures are for that. So what I wanted to ask you is, when you're going out and you are specifically targeting fish for that night's dinner, how do you prepare your boat for that trip? And how do you get the fish from the hook to your plate at home for dinner for you and your family in the best possible way?
I have two incredibly large live wells. One I will typically use for my bait, and the other I use for my catch.
Okay, just so for the people who are listening and don't know, a live well is a compartment on most fishing boats, size of a medium cooler. Some are bigger, some are smaller. It pulls water in from the ocean and recirculates, and it's usually used to keep live bait live.
In one of my live wells, I have a recirculator pulling water from the inlet at all times.
Right.
But I do find that the water stays cooler as long as you're pulling the water from the inlet.
Right. So is it safe to say, step one, you landed a fish, you're going to have it for dinner, you put it into that cooler that has the recirculating water in it?
I put it in the live well that has the recirc and the fresh water in it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So this is a difficult topic, but it's
not, because
it's my next one. It's just part of life.
Yep.
What is the most humane way of killing a fish?
So this is what I'll do. Typically, I will shut the live well off that I know the fish are in that I'm going to keep and eat. I will shut that off well in advance to getting back, well in advance to coming off the water. And typically they will run out of oxygen up there.
Right.
Taking them out, and I'm putting them immediately in ice. Keep that temperature really cold, and it stores it truly does really store the fish, or however you want to call it, while you've got it in the ice,
just above 32
just
degrees.
above frozen.
Yeah.
Yep. And which makes it so much easier to clean. It's a lot easier to cut it and go through it than it is when it's mushy and live.
That makes perfect sense
Yeah.
to me.
Why not get out there and spend the time and truly catch what you want to eat and do it yourself and enjoy that side of it? It makes it so much more rewarding.
Well, that's why I chose this topic, and I chose you, because we live right now in the seafood capital of South Carolina. Now,
right.
Like you're saying, you can go to the store, but maybe there's that handful of fishermen or soon to be fishermen that have an interest in the outdoor sport like this, but maybe they're a little bit intimidated, right? So I have you on to explain that it's really not that difficult if you want to put fish on your plate, because even for me, who I'm a trained chef, but also fished all my life, that whole process is a bit intimidating to me. Because look, you think about it, people just assume because I'm a chef and I've worked for who I've worked for that I know how to perfectly fillet a fish. I don't, because most of my time, they gave me an expense account and I went to the stores and I bought the fish. I knew what was good, what wasn't, but I didn't master, I've become a fishmonger. Right. So this stuff is very interesting to me, and why I thought you would be a terrific guest about getting fish from the inlet to your plate.
Yep.
Do it humanely, do it the most efficiently and the freshest. The other thing too, that if I can put my 2 cents into this, that I see a lot, even in seafood markets I've been to, not just here, but all over, is I'll pick out a beautiful fillet of flounder or whatever, and they put it into a plastic bag and fold the fillets over. Oh my God. I just want to scream.
Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right. And you were talking about preparation for fish. And I think you and I have talked about it. But there are different species that I choose to prepare differently than some.
You know what, English, hold that thought. I want the listeners to hear about some of your recipes and techniques, as do I. I'm very interested in that, but we're going to cut away for a second. I want to talk about a couple of restaurants that I discovered this week, and we're going to start with the first one. It's called Atmosphera. Atmosphera is at 3620 Walton Drive in Myrtle Beach. It's right off Farrell Parkway. And this restaurant kept popping up on Facebook and on my Facebook page. And I kept looking at the photos, and I had the idea that it looked like a Greek restaurant, which my wife and I love Greek food. So we thought we would check it out, and it's anything but Greek. It actually is, it's Ukrainian. That's the major style of the restaurant, except that they also have offerings of, Middle Eastern offerings, gyro or gyro and shawarma. And typically I would shy away from places like this that do that whole crossover thing. It's just, I'm just not crazy about that kind of thing. Like very often, I'll, go to a Chinese restaurant and they have a whole sushi menu, and it just bothers me. I don't know why. It's like, make up your mind. Are you Japanese or are you Chinese? And frankly, had I known that about Atmosphera, I probably wouldn't have gone there. but I'm so glad that I did because, first of all, it's a cute little place. It's in a strip mall. And as you're walking up, you're getting the impression, it's just a storefront type of place. It's going to be a glorified McDonald's or, that kind of feel to it. It's anything but that. It's just this cool little place. When you walk in, you kind of get the feel that it's fast food, but it's not. You sit down, you order off the menu. There's servers that come to your table. It's a really cool atmosphere. It's not overdone. It's pretty basic, but with this like smattering of country French. They have, fresh herbs in these little tin buckets, I guess you'd call them, just to give a little accent to it. And what we discovered when we were there, that it is a true mom and pop restaurant, which are my absolute favorites. It's what on talking about food is. Those types of restaurants are what I'm looking for. I will do and have done the reviews of the fine dining places, but pretty often I get turned off by the fine dining. So sometimes they just don't know when to stop. They just go over the top, and more often than not, I'm not satisfied with fine dining anymore. I do appreciate it. I understand what goes into it. I've been there. But it's just the privately owned mom and pop places, the holes in the wall are the ones that I just gravitate to. It's what I like best. And this is one of those places. It turns out it's actually a Ukrainian couple, a husband and wife. As a matter of fact, the wife was our waitress that evening. It's an open kitchen. There's a little counter that you can sit at and watch them cook. And it was 2 or 3 Ukrainian women cooking behind the counter. It was just so cool. And you could tell they loved what they did and they were happy. And anyway, it was the waitress that explained to us that she and her husband own Atmosphera, and they do a good job. My wife and I were much more interested in the Ukrainian style or Ukrainian side of the menu. Like I said before, they have gyros and shawarma. For those who don't know, gyro is kind of Turkish Greek. It's the meat is done on a vertical rotisserie, and it's shaved off into a pita with onions and cucumbers and tomatoes and lettuce, and the main condiment for that is called tzatziki. It's a yogurt dip kind of thing that's flavored with many different herbs, including mint and parsley, and it's good. And shawarma is almost the same. Only it's done in a wrap, and that the condiment most often used for that is called tahini. It's ground sesame paste. Like I said, both good, but it's not why we went there. My wife had stuffed cabbage rolls, which is near and dear to her heart, being Ukrainian. They call them halupchi in the Ukraine, and they were great. Filled with beef and rice and dill wrapped in cabbage leaves, and then they're braised for, a couple hours in a tomato-based sauce. Portions were great. I think it was only about $15 for her dish. And I had a selection of Polish, Ukrainian made, but I know them as Polish pierogi. I had them with sauerkraut. I tried some with potato and cheese, and they were out of this world. They were just great. They're served with sour cream and just wonderful. I don't know if I said the cabbage roll dish was about $15. The pierogi were $9 and $10, you can get a platter of mixed types of filling. And they also have stuffed peppers with pork and rice served in a beautiful broth. Terrific. They've got Polish sausage, Ukrainian borscht. So there are other entrees to try, and I can just about guarantee that I will be going back to try them. But it was wonderful. I can't wait to go back. It was a great find. These people, they love what they do. It is a true mom and pop restaurant. It's comfortable. It's clean. The food is obviously homemade. Heck, they make it right in front of you there. But give that one a try. I think for people who like that style of food, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And you walk out, still having some money in your wallet. And once again, Atmosphera, they're at 3620 Walton Drive in Myrtle Beach, and it's right off Faro Parkway. Another place I want to talk about is this bakery that my wife and I stumbled upon in Pawleys Island. Actually, it was a little while back, and I've been wanting to talk about it for a while. It's called Incredible Edibles, and it is at 11326 Ocean Highway. My wife and I, we were out shopping around, and we discovered this bakery. She's like, oh, come on, let's go in, let's check it out. We walked in, cute place. It's got that sort of farmhouse French style to it. Really, really nice and cute inside, but not overbearing. It's real comfortable when you walk in. And we went up to the counter. There was a woman behind the counter and a woman sitting at one of the tables. We struck up a conversation with the woman at the counter, and the woman who was sitting down joined in. Turns out that she's the head pastry chef and owner. Her name is Nancy Canar, and she is an absolutely fascinating woman. We ended up sitting at the table with her and talking for about an hour. She's a true artist, but not pretentious. And I'll explain that in a second. But she's been seen on the Food Network. She won the Knot, KNOT, Best of Weddings 2024. Her wedding cakes are just gorgeous. They are so beautiful. But we weren't in there, obviously, for that. We were hungry, and we wanted something sweet, and they sell donuts and muffins there. But what sets this place apart from a lot of other places is that it's you consider it an artisan bakery, but like I said, not pretentious, and that's a fine line to walk, and it's not easy. You're not going to find chocolate donuts with different colored sprinkles in this place, but you're not also going to feel so intimidated that you're going to turn around and walk out. And it's not expensive. It's a absolutely terrific place. My wife ended up with a basic oatmeal raisin cookie. My wife's not very adventurous. And I had what they call a cruffin. It's a combination of a croissant and a muffin. And it must stand 4 or 5 inches tall. I'm sure it's made in a brioche pan. They're like muffin pans, only deeper. But anyway, like I said, this thing probably stands 3-4 inches high. It is light as a feather, and it was filled with a cream cheese mixture and, of course, my favorite, cherry filling. And what was so remarkable about this pastry was that every bite into the pastry, you got just the right amount of cream cheese filling and cherries. It truly is a work of art. It was spectacular. My wife ended up, I think I said, with a oatmeal raisin cookie, but it was excellent. It was perfectly done. Big, big raisins and just that really delicious oatmeal cinnamon flavor to it. It was just so good. But what I loved about this place was how the pastry chef, walks this very thin line between sort of ordinary bakery and over-the-top pretentious. And that is not an easy thing to do. I'll never forget one of my chef instructors many, many years ago back in culinary school said to me, one of the things that will separate a good chef from a great chef is when to hold back. When to know that that's too much on the plate. And it's a very easy thing to do, especially when you're new and you're learning, to end up over garnishing. I see it so often, and nothing screams amateur like over garnishing a plate. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the philosophical part of this, but she does it, and she does it beautifully. And what's really cool is it doesn't hurt your wallet. It's not an expensive place. But when it comes to her wedding cakes, they are spectacular. It's a great place to try. You should really check it out. Like I said, it's not intimidating. You walk in, very friendly, very comfortable, and they also have in the bakery section, they have breakfast pastries, macaroons. They sell coffee by Coastal Coffee Roasters, tea by Charleston Tea Plantation, and she does have afternoon teas once in a while in there. Or she did not too long ago this sort of murder mystery thing that was. I saw some of the pictures from it. She told me about it. It was quite cool. But check that place out. It is called, once again, Incredible Edibles, and they are at 11326 Ocean Highway. If you see Nancy, tell her that Richard, the private chef to the star, sent you. All right, let's get back to Captain Englis Glover. He's going to tell us some of his techniques for cooking fish and maybe a recipe or two.
The one thing I do with black drum, with red drum, which are both, I can't remember the technical term, but they both have a really thick layer of fat between the skin and the meat.
Right. Yeah, it's subcutaneous fat. They call it the fat line.
And so,
like salmon.
Like salmon. And what I like to do is leave the skin and the scales on it. I don't scale it. I don't do anything. I fillet it. I go down, I debone the ribs. I make sure that I've got a real meaty fillet with my skin and my scales on it. And I cook it on the grill. Typically, what I will do is make up something that my kids love, brown sugar. They have to have something sweet.
Who doesn't?
I can sneak in some heat. I'll sneak in some Chef Prud'hom's, but I'll mix it with some brown sugar or any other good seasoning, and just coat the top of that drum with it. Get my grill to about 350 to 380, and I'll take, depending upon the size of the fillet, I'll take a big spoonful of butter, put it right in the middle. If it's a big fillet, I'll put 2. Put it right in the middle, put it on the grill, put the butter on it, close the grill. I come back, when that butter is melted, I go ahead and scoop with my spatula and pull the meat right off the skin, and it's unbelievable. But that fatty, when that fatty cooks into that meat, it just makes it.
Oh, man, you're killing me. That sounds delicious.
Tastes so much better, and it's not dry at all. You know that. I mean, that's the reason we're doing it. But it does have just such a different taste than when I used to fillet them down to nothing.
Right. If you think about it, very often, if grilling fish or whatever, let's say it doesn't have a skin on it, and you're going to put it onto the grill, or even when you're baking fish, right, you'll put a few pats of butter
on top.
Well, you're trading out the butter for the natural fat of the fish.
And like I said, if the kids will eat it, I'm for it.
I learned years ago as a private chef, you make the kids happy, everybody's
happy.
Yeah.
Happy. What? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that trumps that is happy kids.
Yeah. Or it's happy kids, happy wife. So, folks, as you can see, the private chef to the stars just learned a great low country technique for grilling fish from a fishing boat captain. That's what we do here at Talking About Food. If you're not a prima donna in the kitchen and you're comfortable in your own skin, you'll always be learning something, new recipes, techniques, ideas. Frankly, Inglis, I think you should have your own cooking show.
I learn from you every day, buddy, by the way. Well,
okay.
you share your recipes with me. I at least got to share one of our back home good old boy recipes.
No, hey, back home recipes have always been my favorite. You know, just because I was lucky enough to study at some prestigious culinary academies doesn't mean that that's the way I like to eat or cook. You know, I've done the bougie thing. I've eaten at bougie restaurants. I've cooked in bougie fashion. Been there, done that. It's just not something that interests me that much anymore. You know what drives me nuts, though? You said it before. We have this wealth of fish in our own backyard, right? South Carolina flounder, probably the most mild fish that I've ever put into my mouth. And then I watch chefs drown it in sauce. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I recently watched a YouTube video where they took this beautiful piece, I don't know if it was flounder or grouper, and just glooped this heavy, buttery, it had tomato chunks in it, and it just didn't work. You know, let the fish be the main attraction and the sauce or condiment be the supporting cast. That's my theory on it.
That's a great point. And one thing that I did, and this was a mistake. I'm going to call it. I love it. So I love your word goop stuff on it. So I'm a big salsa fan. If I'm in Tennessee on vacation, I'm always going to these little markets and I'm grabbing salsa. If it's peach, I'm buying it. If it's lime, some lime salsas are really good. But so I had this peach salsa, and I had some speckled trout fillets. I said, this will be so good. Let's just put them in a bag with the salsa, and then we'll put it on tinfoil on the grill and cook it, covered in that salsa, blah, blah, blah. It'll be great. It was absolutely terrible. It really was like a mush, goopy. It was a terrible. Put it on rice. We ate it on rice, which might have helped a little bit. But after that, I was like, no more doing it this way.
So, Captain E, I know you know this, but for the listeners, you took a soft fish and you marinated it in that salsa, which is tomato-based and filled with acid, and that, you know, immediately breaks down the meat of the fish. But then you cooked it, even though it was on the grill, you had it wrapped, I think you said, in foil, and you created a poaching situation, which you should typically do. If you're going to poach fish, you typically want to do it with a firmer, flaky fish. But think about this. If you were to bake that fish, right, a little bit of salt and pepper, and then drizzle that beautiful salsa over the top once it comes out, I think that would be the answer to that.
But for those that believe that there's only two ways to cook fish, and that is fried or fried, I challenge you to try fish other ways.
Yeah. No, I think one of the greatest tasting fish on the planet is just a straight up fresh baked cod.
Oh, yeah.
Fresh cod, little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit of butter. There's nothing better. Back to the salsa story. When I was working for Mel Gibson, he was doing Apocalypto, the movie in Mexico. And he would fly back and forth. He would come back on the weekend. So the family stayed in town. They're getting near the end of the film, and his wife comes to me this one time and she says, "Hey Richard, would you mind going back with Mel this next week to Mexico to cook for him down there? It's getting to the end of the shoot, and he's getting a little tired of the food that they have." And I said, "What am I going to say? No,
right? No."
So we jump on his plane on Sunday night. We head back to Veracruz, right? So it's right on the coast. And I didn't have much to do during the day, so I would just go out shopping around. And I go into this Costco, a Mexican Costco, and they've got a fresh salsa bar, right? And I took just one of the basic salsas back to the house. And I couldn't believe it. It was so delicious. So when I went back, I befriended this guy because I had talked to him a while. He explained to me how to make it. It had to be a good quality of, get this, canned whole tomatoes, chopped onions, chopped garlic, some chopped cilantro, little bit of sea salt, and just a quick blend in a blender. Oh, and jalapeno. You put as much in as you want. Just a quick couple of pulses in a blender to get it as chunky or as saucy as you wanted it. It's the only way I make it now.
That's great.
Okay, Captain E, let's quickly go over the 4 steps of getting your fish from the inlet to your plate for fishermen out there like me who love to fish but are a little bit intimidated with how to transport the fish. You went over it beautifully before, but we'll just wrap it up real quickly. Number 1, as soon as you catch your fish, you put it into the recirculating live well. Now, for folks that don't understand what that is, it's a compartment that's on most sport fishing boats that pulls water in from the ocean and keeps the water recirculating in this live well. So number 1, you put your freshly caught fish in there. Number 2, shut off your live well about an hour before you're going to start heading back to the dock. This way the fish dies in the most humane way possible. Number 3, when you get back to the dock, immediately transfer your fish to a cooler packed with ice and water. Add some water to it. You want to make it slushy. It makes the fish as cold as it possibly can without freezing. It makes it easy to clean and fillet the fish. And the last one, when you fillet your fish, don't fold the fillets. It breaks up the meat. Great stuff, Captain E. I think the listeners know now why I have a fisherman on the show today. Thanks so much,
Shep. It's
for
a pleasure.
By. He's iconic, and he's the busiest man I know, but never, ever.
You're too kind.
Never too busy to help somebody in need, and that's how we met, and I am so grateful. Yeah, you got to listen to Captain Englis Glover's show on the weekends. It's been on, did you say for 10 years?
10 years. 10 years and 3 months now.
Wow, and I'm so proud to be part of it.
We love having you on there.
Yeah, that's on Gator 107.9 every Saturday from 8 to 10. And don't forget his podcast, Trilogy Outdoors, Fish, Fur, and Feathers.
Fins, Fur, and Feathers.
That's what I said. Didn't you listen? Thanks for coming by. I so appreciate it, Captain E.
My pleasure.
And coming up next, I've got a couple of restaurants to talk about, and one of them, in my search for the best pizzeria in the Grand Strand, I hit another one this past week that I want to talk about. That was Captain Englis Glover, folks. He's a cool dude, man. I love that guy. He's got a heart of gold. And I was thinking it's maybe apropos after an interview like that we check out a cool seafood market that I frequent, that I like quite a bit. You know, not everybody here has the ability to catch their own fish, nor do they want to. So you need a good market, seafood market, to purchase your fresh fish and seafood from. And one of my favorites so far is Harrelson's. I thought maybe we'd head down there and talk to Jace, the manager of the new location in Pawleys Island. It's at 9752 Ocean Highway. Let's head down there and talk to Jace. He's the new manager down there, and he's also a cool dude. I'm sitting here at the new Harrelson's Market in Pawleys Island, and they take it to the next level, which just blows me away. I'm joined here by the manager, Jace Tackett. Jace, welcome to Talking About Food. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm just great, and I'm so grateful that you would take the time to sit with me, which is, before you start talking, it's just like another thing that just blows me away. not just about living in the Grand Strand, but dealing with certain businesses, yours in particular, where the customer service is just off the charts. I've probably shopped at Harrelson's 50 times. Well, I'm exaggerating, probably about 25 times since we moved here. And every single time that I walk in, I'm treated like family. They don't know who I am. They don't know that I'm the private chef to the stars. It's not like I walk around with a sign on me, or even I just don't talk that way, about my past. But I came in, you may not even remember this the first time. You didn't know who I was. I didn't know who you were. And you just went from fish to fish, explaining what each of it was. And every time I've been in there, I've been treated that way. So you've been with Harrelson's for how long?
This summer will be going on 5 years.
And you're 60 years old, right?
No, I'm 22.
So you started when you were 17.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's
17 going on 18. Yep.
That's very impressive. And what are the jobs that you have had with Harrelson's?
Yeah, when I started out, I was basically a grunt. I did everything from packing fish to unloading boats to taking out the trash to mopping the floors to doing the dishes at night.
So you truly started at the bottom.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, when I was talking to you the first time, you would do most of the filleting.
Yeah. So the day one I walked into Harrelson's, I could get around cleaning the fish, but now I would say I'm a fishmonger, is what they call it. Professional.
You're an expert. And you were telling me something before about the boats that you have. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, sir. We have 3 boats, the Gracie's Way, the Hairdo, and then the Rampage. They go out fishing 3 to 4 days at a time. Stay out there sun up to sundown, fishing sun up to sundown, and they don't come back to the dock unless they got a full box. We meet them back at the dock, ship it out, up and down the East Coast, and sell it to the homes, local homes, and all the way down to Hilton Head.
And obviously in your market here, folks, it doesn't get any fresher than that, Look, when I worked for Tom Cruise and Mel Gibson, I had to provide them with the finest quality of ingredients. My reputation was on the line. So I shopped for all of this food myself. And frankly, if I ever had to do a dinner party here in the Grand Strand for a Hollywood A-lister and I needed seafood, Harrelson's would be my go-to. There's obviously a lot of places that you can shop in the Grand Strand, but like I said before, I always looked for the highest quality product that I could find and look no further. I guarantee it, folks. Come visit them at their new location at 9752 Ocean Highway, Pawleys Island. Tell them the private chef to the stars sent you. Thank you, Jace. Okay, Grand Strand, let's wrap up the show with the pizzeria that I visited this past week. We're going to review one pizzeria every week for 52 weeks, and then we're going to choose what I think is the best one in the Grand Strand. Not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of pizzerias, and there's a lot of good ones. So also in Murrells Inlet, and I promise you folks, I'm going to be branching out. There's a number of places I've already tried in Myrtle Beach, but this one surprised me. It's a wood-fired pizza that is served at Bovines restaurant in, once again, Murrells Inlet. They're at 3979 17 Business, and they do all types of wood-fired specialties. And I was very interested in this, having run a wood-fired pizza restaurant in Los Angeles for so long, and I was anxious to see what the texture of their crust was like, because we've talked about this before. Forget about any toppings that a pizzeria is going to put on. If you don't get the crust right, go home. It's just the way it is. And with Neapolitan pizza, it's a lot more difficult because you're dealing with a different style of dough. It's much more hydrated. It's got a lot more water in it, hence the high temperature of the wood-fired oven. And there's a lot of variables going on, and it takes Takes a lot of time to get that right, and they do a real nice job over at Bovines. If I had one comment about the pizza there, it just didn't seem to have as much flavor as I would have liked. The crust, that is. Crust was slightly missing that nice yeasty flavor, yeasty smell you get from dough made for a wood-fired oven, but certainly would not stop me from going back. And like I said, they do have a lot of other wood-fired specialties there, but I went strictly for pizza, being on this mission. Okay, folks, before we go, I wanted to throw out a couple of products to you that I think will be very helpful. I learned over the years as a private chef what to use, what not to use. I worked for years in restaurants and catering companies before I discovered the private chef world. And when I did start working as a private chef, I learned very quickly that I didn't have a staff. I didn't have a staff anymore. I became a one-man show. You know, I created the menus every day. I shopped for the food. I prepped. I cooked. I cleaned up. Sound familiar? Sounds like what you do at home. I've often said the only difference between you, the home cook, and me, the private chef, is I got a check. That's about it. But 25 years as a private chef, I learned a lot working by myself. I developed a policy that I will cut corners as long as it doesn't cut quality. And I learned a lot of that over the years. One of the products that I discovered over the years, and I'll still use it today, it's called More Than Gourmet. It is sauce demi-glaces, and for people that don't know what that is, I'll give you the simplest explanation of it. It is a stock that has been reduced so low it becomes very syrupy and concentrated. And all you do is you add a little bit of water to it, and the results are phenomenal. They do a veal demi-glace that can become your base for a number of sauces made very, very easily. I've often taken the veal demi-glace base and I've added red wine to it, some water to sort of reconstitute it, added some red wine, reduced it to the thickness that I wanted with absolutely rave reviews. You can use it with veal, beef, pork. They have chicken stock demi-glace, they've got seafood stock, and all of it is exceptional. And it really then sets you apart. Excuse me, I've learned over the years that one of the things that'll separate the sort of average home cook from the rest is their ability to create sauces and pastry. Takes you to the next level. I see very often on Instagram and on YouTube, I'll see a lot of home cooks doing things. They're very, very impressive. As a matter of fact, some of the marketing people have told me, you got to post pictures every day. And I'm like, somebody could take a decent recipe, a home cook, a decent recipe, and with an iPhone take a shot of it, and it looks incredible. And do I want to compete with that? I don't think so. I'm here to pass on the information that I have gained over 25 years as a private chef and pass it on to you folks to give it back to the community. Something that doesn't necessarily happen with the high-end Food Network kinds of chefs. They get sponsored by, a product or whatever, and they talk about it as though they use it every day. That happens a lot with cooking ranges and stuff, which I'm going to get into next. But what I'm trying to do is pass on to you, and people don't pay me for this. There is no company so far, anyway, that is sponsoring me on this show. I am free to give you the information that I have learned over the years, and I'm telling you, one of them is More Than Gourmet. You can get it, I believe, at Publix and Lowe's Foods, and if you can't, you can get it online. It's a little bit pricey. They come in 1.5 containers, and then I think a pint container, but the pint container will cost about $45. But not only will it last a year, you will make 10, maybe even 15 batches of sauce for any given dinner. So More Than Gourmet is a good one. I really, really like them. Cooking ranges, stoves. I've used them all. My three favorite go-tos are Wolf, Thermador, and Viking. I've been asked a number of times, I think I talked about this on another show, a number of times I've been asked to outfit one of the kitchens I've been working in of one of the celebrities. Will just come to me and say, hey, you know what, we'd like to upgrade the kitchen a bit. What do you think? And I always picked one of those three. Now, there's a ton out there that I'm sure may be as good quality as the ones that I'm telling you, but I know I've used these products. You know, I would have to go to the stores in LA that were similar to Swift Appliances or Dues Appliances and walk in there and outfit the kitchen. And I've always had extremely good results with all three of those brands. I'm checking out some other ones to see if they compare with the three that I've told you. You know, I can spot a mile away. I've often been told, you know, I'd be going to somebody's house to cook dinner, just a one-night thing. And, you know, I've been told they've got a chef's kitchen. They've got, you got to see this thing. It's a chef's kitchen. And I walk in and I think, boy, who put this together? And it's usually either fashionable or functional. And most of the time, it's fashionable. It's something that people see in magazines or what somebody else has down the street or whatever. But often I'll walk into a place, into a home, and I'll just go, oh my God, what did they do? But you can have both. And I think those three brands fit that bill, both functional and fashionable, when somebody was trying to put together a true chef's kitchen. You start there. And my fellow food friends, make sure you tune in next week to hear my interview with singer-songwriter Dion. Dion had 3 top 40 hits in 1958. In the 60s, he had a solo hit, Abraham, Martin, and John. I'm sure you all remember that. He's the only one from the 1950s, the only singer, songwriter, artist from the 1950s that has stayed creative and relevant well into the 2000s. In the 80s, he moved into contemporary Christian music. In 2008, he was nominated for a Grammy. And in 2020, released a blues album with his friends, joined by Joe Bonamassa, Paul Simon, Bruce Springsteen, Van Morrison, Jeff Beck, and many others. And Dion will be here. And this guy, man, he loves talking food. He loves talking about food, man. He really gets you going. So make sure you tune in for that. Okay, folks, if you would like to have a private cooking demonstration in your home by me, the Private Chef to the Stars, just check out theprivatecheftothestars.com for more information. If there are restaurants you want me to check out, food trucks, that's what I do here at Talking About Food. I want to find out where they are. I love the mom and pop places, the privately owned places. You can reach me at theprivatecheftothestars@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, folks, and remember, you are your family's private chef.